So tasty. You watching? She's witness to these events. Yeah? You're just gonna yell while I'm filming? Hi, cutie. Satin's my camera operator. What are you helping with? He's not sure, and neither am I. But he is long. Okay, I need to start now, little boy. He's checking the microphone, that's what he's doing. Okay, I have to put you down now. Oh gosh. Well, I said in my last video that spring was finally here, but it has snowed again since then, so I'm hoping that spring is actually here now. There's flowers outside starting to pop up, so that's a good sign because I am sick of the winter and I'm ready for spring. And every spring I start to wish that I was a hobbit, you know, just living in a little hill, having some breakfast, having some second breakfast, some 11sies, smoking a pipe, drinking some tea. How could you not want that life, you know? Like, it's a question that I have for the orcs in particular, but whatever, no matter. So today we are going to be diving into the world of Hobbit fashion. We're going to be talking about how Tolkien has described the Hobbit's fashion in the Hobbit book as well as the Lord of the Rings books. We're going to talk about how Hobbits do indeed have a social structure and how their clothing tells us about that. And most importantly, we're going to talk about how you can create a perfect Hobbitcore wardrobe for this spring. If you're new here, I'm Kiki. If you saw my previous video, you'll know that I announced a really exciting event. It's a Hobbit-themed event called the Brandywine Festival. It's going to be in Harrodsburg, Kentucky this October. So stay tuned till the end of the video because I'm going to tell you how you might be able to win a ticket to go to the event with me. Basically, this festival is a 5-day live-action role-playing event set in the Shire. There's some really cool concept art. It's run by Bergschneider in partnership with Middle-earth Enterprises. Bergschneider is a German LARP clothing company, but they also run Conquest of Mythidia, which is the biggest LARP in the world at like 10,000 players. So I have no doubt that this event is going to be super fun. There is a Kickstarter, which you can get tickets. I just wanted to mention that because while this video is intended for creating outfits that you can wear to this event, if you're watching this video for general tips on Hobbitcore fashion, it's still totally applicable. Just ignore anything I might reference about LARP that doesn't apply to you. Now let's talk about how to dress like a proper Hobbit, whether you are a rustic farmer, a cozy tavern goer, or a gentle Hobbit from the Shire. So first of all, what are Hobbits like? I'm going to read a quote from Tolkien's prologue to The Fellowship of the Ring. As for the hobbits of the Shire, with whom these tales are concerned, in the days of their peace and prosperity, they were a merry folk. They dressed in bright colors, being notably fond of yellow and green, but they seldom wore shoes, since their feet had tough, leathery soles and were clad in thick curling hair, much like the hair on their heads, which was commonly brown. Thus, the only craft little practiced among them was shoemaking, but they had long and skillful fingers and could make many other useful and comely things. Their faces were as a rule good-natured rather than beautiful, broad, bright-eyed, red-cheeked, with mouths apt to laughter, and to eating and drinking, and laugh they did, and eat and drink, often and heartily, being fond of simple jests at all times, and of 6 meals a day when they could get them. They were hospitable and delighted in parties and presents, which they gave away freely and eagerly accepted. So let's talk about Hobbit clothing and their social structure. Hobbits, like any good society, have different clothes depending on your status and your lifestyle. Hobbits definitely have clear rural English inspiration, with waistcoats, knickerbockers, and breeches, layered outfits, and this makes sense because Tolkien was inspired by the English countryside from his childhood in the late 19th century. From the books, we also know that they have knowledge of clocks, like the one on Bilbo's mantle. They seem to know about chess, which is mentioned by Pippin in the Minas Tirith chapter, and we know that they have fine craftsmanship, meaning that their clothes are practical but well made. Rustic hobbits like the Gamgees and many others in Hobbiton wear practical, well-worn clothing. Earth-toned jackets, like what Sam wears. He's described as wearing a brown jacket and breeches in Book 1, Chapter 1. For more feminine clothing, bodices, aprons, shorter skirts, and sun hats made of straw. More well-off hobbits, like Bilbo and Frodo, prefer fancier waistcoats with gold buttons, bright colors, and even jewelry. Bilbo's birthday party outfit includes a fine waistcoat with gold buttons. We also have Bree and Bucklander hobbits, which live outside of the Shire and they dress more ruggedly, and they even wear shoes sometimes. One of the most well-known facts about hobbits is that they go barefoot. But in the Fellowship of the Ring, we learn that Bucklander hobbits, they sometimes wear boots in bad weather, which they get from the dwarves who trade shoes with them. This is in Book 1, Chapter 9. This means that if you are at a muddy LARP or a rainy event, wearing shoes is still lore friendly, which, as someone with pretty sensitive feet when it comes to walking on rough ground, I really appreciate this, and I'm glad that I'll be able to walk around at this event with shoes on and it will still be considered lore friendly, which is great. Plus, in that quote that I read earlier, he says that they seldom wear shoes, not never. There's even this photo here of Bilbo with an eagle that Tolkien made, and you can see that Bilbo is wearing shoes. So what are some Hobbit-themed LARP shoes that you could wear to this event? You could do any type of flat leather shoes, moccasin style, sandals, simple leather shoes like these ones from Bergschneider. I also have these Viking shoes from Bergschneider that are very cool. Plus, I actually think that hobbits could totally rock clogs. Fun fact, in the earliest drafts of the book before Aragorn was Strider, he was actually called Trotter, and he wouldn't have been a man, he would have been a hobbit, and he was described as wearing wooden shoes like clogs, so I would say that that's lore friendly as well, which is very fun. Anything rustic and practical works. For a LARP, you of course don't want it to look too modern, but I mean, at the end of the day, you need your feet protected when we're running around and doing shenanigans together. All right, so let's talk about fabric and color choices for Hobbit clothing. So hobbits love earthly warm tones, but they also like to celebrate with bright colors. At Bilbo's party, the hobbits are described as wearing bright, festive clothing. I also mentioned earlier in that quote that they seem to be fond of green and yellow, which is very fun information. As for fabric choices, linen, cotton, anything breathable, natural, comfy layers is going to be the best option. It will not only make the clothing look a little bit older because polyester kind of tends to have like that shiny modern look to it, but again, at an event, wearing breathable natural fibers is a huge game changer. I didn't realize this at my first LARP I attended, and I ended up sticking to pretty much the same outfits because I had some other stuff that I thrifted thinking, wow, this looks perfect, and it was polyester, and I was just absolutely dying, and I couldn't stand it, so keep that in mind. There's also wool and tweed for warmth, especially for like cloaks or vests and jackets and things. Frodo, Sam, and Pippin are described journeying to Frodo's new house that he buys in the Fellowship of the Rings in the early chapters as wearing dark green thick cloaks with hoods. I think that plaid also can work for hobbits. It just feels very in line with tweed to me, so maybe that's a me thing. I have no proof that they had plaid, but I think plaid looks very hobbity. For fancier hobbits, I would say velvet, brocade, kind of nicer, shinier fabrics would go especially well for wealthier hobbits like Bilbo and Frodo. In The Lord of the Rings, the hobbits are described as wearing breeches, or like, this would be similar to knickerbockers in Victorian times, which are shorter trousers. And we also have this drawing of Bilbo in his home by Tolkien, and it shows him wearing short pants. So I think that that's a really easy way to make your outfit automatically look more hobbity. It's just cropping your pants. And there are a couple options for how you can easily do this. Number one is you can just roll them up. If you're using pants that you don't want to alter permanently, rolling up the hem just below the knee will give you that instant Hobbit vibe. Perfect if you don't know how to sew. You can turn your pants inside out, roll them up, and use a safety pin on the inside of the pants to keep them rolled up. Option 2 is cut or hem. If you don't mind the pants fraying a little bit, you can just take scissors, crop them. That'll definitely give you a little bit more of a rugged farmer type Hobbit vibe, which I think is very fun. But if you know how to sew, you can also trim your pants just below the knee or like mid-calf and do a simple hem. The third option is you can tuck them into your socks. This is a really good no-sew option that will keep you cozy. 4 is you can buy or add a drawstring to the end of any pair of pants. The 5th thing is you can also try thrifting capris or like long shorts in your size if you don't want to deal with doing it yourself. Online thrifting is also a good way to find pieces that you might not normally see at your local thrift stores. And I have to say, men, do not be afraid to look in the women's section. Everybody should be looking in the women's section. There is so many more interesting options over there, and you know, sometimes I even find really cool men's stuff that accidentally gets put over there. So don't limit yourself by just being in the men's section, because there's a lot more options out there. Something that I have noticed that I think is a really easy way to give sort of the Victorian Hobbit vibe is shirts with no collars. So like this shirt that I'm wearing here, it's just a collarless shirt, or if you wanted to do it yourself, you can just thrift a shirt with a collar and just cut it off right above this little band right here. And I think that this fits really well with the kind of rustic yet tidy look of hobbits. But other things you can look for are loose, comfortable fitting shirts, because obviously hobbits value comfort. Cropped sleeves can also give you that same shorter look as cropped pants can. And I would also say to look for things that have some type of like embroidery or nice like handiwork, if you will, because we know that hobbits enjoy handmade crafts. Another layer is jackets. So in The Hobbit, Chapter 1, An Unexpected Party, Bilbo is specifically described as wearing a green velvet jacket. And later, when he returns home to the Shire in the very end, he is described as wearing a blue coat with silver buttons, which is exactly why I bought this one, because I saw it and I thought that is the perfect Bilbo jacket. Going along with the jackets, they're also often described in vests or waistcoats, which are another great thing that you can thrift. If you're looking for a jacket, thrift a blazer or some kind of structured jacket, especially if it's velvet, corduroy, tweed, or wool, those coats that have a slightly old-fashioned cut. I also find that the military style jackets with lots of buttons can kind of work well. That's kind of what this looks like. Here's another example of one that I saw in a thrift store recently. It was too big for me, but you get the picture. You can also always modify stuff if you feel like it. So a modern blazer, if the lapels feel too modern, you can round them off. You can replace the buttons for a little bit more of a historical look, add some embroidery, you know, get really fancy with it if you want to be a fancy hobbit. If not, you can tatter it up and, you know, maybe fit into the Gamgee family. I think a very nice way to kind of elevate it to a more upper class hobbit look is to pair a jacket with a waistcoat, especially if it's like in a contrasting color. I think that that adds a lot of dimension to outfits. When it comes to just costuming in general, and this is how I feel about my everyday clothing, but again, I know that I dress kind of costumey and that's not for everyone, so that's okay. But anyway, I think layers are the most important part of making an outfit, especially if you are trying to make a themed outfit. It's just a really easy way to pull it all together. So if you're looking for more feminine hobbity attire, Tolkien really didn't give us much detail on what hobbit women wear, but we can make educated guesses based on the rustic, practical, yet slightly rural Victorian aesthetic. I would say key elements of feminine hobbit outfits consist of calf-length skirts. I think are a perfect way of staying practical, but it still looks charming. It also makes you look short, which is another bonus for hobbit looks. peasant style or Victorian inspired blouses with like puffy sleeves, gathers, embroidery. I think that is a perfect way to get a more feminine hobbity feel. You can also do shifts or chemises that were common Victorian undergarments. They sometimes have very decorative sleeves. Bodices and corsets, I would say, are probably what comes to mind the most for me though. A soft, comfortable stays or like a laced up bodice to add some structure to the outfit. If you don't have a bodice, there are some options. You can kind of fake this look with a tank top if it is the right vibe. You can also always make one. I made this one with thrifted materials. If you're looking to pattern your own bodice to your measurements, I will leave a video in the description that my friend Rebecca made. It was very helpful. If you are interested in getting a bodice, you can kind of find them everywhere now, which is awesome because it did not used to be like that. But I would recommend Etsy shops like Office 7. Lace Made has some cute corsets on their website. French Meadows obviously has some of my favorite corsets. But yeah, I would definitely say that to me, stays corsets are the more hobbity looking compared to like a very like shapely Victorian corset. I also think stays are way comfier, which that feels like something that would be very important in Hobbit's decision making for clothing. As I mentioned earlier, layering is going to be key for pretty much anything. So you could pair a skirt and a blouse with an apron, you could put a petticoat underneath, you could do a cozy shawl. All Hobbits are described as having curly, whimsical hair, and I think flower crowns can pair with that quite nicely. There's no evidence in the books that that Hobbit ladies would wear those, but I also don't see why they wouldn't. So who's stopping you? Accessories are also really important to making fantasy-inspired outfits, in my opinion. Hobbits might be simple folk, but they do love trinkets and craftsmanship. Tolkien often describes jewels, buttons. I could imagine hobbits having some fancy embroidery with beads, maybe some brooches on their clothing, a pocket watch, a well-loved walking stick, a pipe, a backpack, or a pouch for snacks, which is very important. Suspenders, I think very much fit the vibe, and these pants that I thrifted and cropped are too big for me, so it's either this or a belt, and these feel very hobbity to me, which is perfect because they would often be paired with breeches and knickerbockers anyway. So whether you're dressing as a rustic gardener, a wandering scholar, or a wealthy, gentle hobbit, your outfit should feel comfortable and lived in. I think that's the most important thing when it comes to hobbits. I would say about 90% of the clothing that I showed in this video is thrifted, which is great because you can make some very affordable hobbit outfits for yourself. If you have any questions about specific pieces, let me know in the comments, because even if I thrifted them, maybe there's tags, or maybe you like an item that is from a website that I purchased from. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions about anything that I showed on myself. Plus, if you are attending the Brandywine Festival, please let me know in the comments. I am so looking forward to this event. I can't even describe it. It's in October, which is like more than 6 months away, but I'm thinking about it daily and I just can't wait. So if you want to get a ticket, check out the Kickstarter below in the description, but also if you want to win a free ticket, that's going to be something you can enter over on my Instagram. So I will have my Instagram linked below as well. Keep your eyes peeled for the reel that will consist of these outfits, and I will have information over there on how you can enter to win. I had a lot of fun researching for this video and seeing what Tolkien actually was describing. I'm actually reading the Fellowship for the first time, and I went back and was very careful to pay attention to how he was talking about the hobbits in the early Shire chapters, and I was having a lot of fun with it. So I hope that you found this helpful, and may your teapot always be full. Hopefully I'll see you over on Instagram for the giveaway.